Hello, my name is AJ Goldsby. I'm a Life Master from Pensacola, Florida, and this will be my March Game of the Month for March 2015. I'm running a little behind, had a lot of problems this year. I won't want to bore you with the details of my personal life, but this is a very interesting game, and I thought I would like to at least finish this game up and get it posted on the internet. This will be the Game of the Month for March 2015. I'm not even sure how you pronounce the player that's playing white. He's a young GM. Nepomniachtchi is about the best I can come up with, and black is Grigoriants. Nepo is a fairly well-known young player, and he's 2,700 plus now, and his opponent Grigorian's almost at 2,600. Anyway, this is from the Aeroflot Open, which was played back in March of 2015. It's basically a very interesting Petroff's opening, and so I thought I would just play through this. My webpage will be very detailed, and it will contain a lot of annotations and a lot of variations, so I'm not going to look at a lot of that. I'm just going to basically just quickly cover the game, and if you want to further explore the analysis of the game, then you should see my webpage. Also, there will be a free download of the game in a Adobe format, so you can look at the game, print that out, and study it in detail if you like to do that as well. Anyway, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the game. Nepomniachtchi is white and Grigoriants is black. The game starts off e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6. Of course, this is known as the Petroff defense, or also known as the Russian defense. This is a favorite of former world champion Anatoly Karpov at the height of his, power when he was a big-time player in the 70s and on into the early 80s. You would often see this being debated, and he won very many nice games with this. And I really would urge you that if you really want to see a top-level player playing the Petroff, then you should study the games of Anatoly Karpov. Also, too, there's another player that was kind of pioneered this opening. Petrov, of course, the Russian player, he invented it. And but the player that would really, I think, deserves credit for putting this opening on the map would have to be the great American Frank J. Marshall. But anyway, and white plays d4. Now, d4 is not the main line. Just very quickly, I'll show you what the main line normally is played. Knight takes e5, d6, knight f3, knight takes e4, d4, d5, bishop d3, knight c6, white castles, bishop e7, c4, knight b4, bishop e2, black castles, knight c3. And then white, according to all the computers, and most opening books, white has a slight plus here. And you can see MCO 15, page 98, columns 1 through 6. This is a fairly good game. And in actual play, there's a game of Carlsen that he was playing Wang Yu and a couple other players. But this is you can find many games in the database, and I'll just leave you to explore that position. But anyway, let's go back to the actual game here. In the actual game, Nepo, I like to call him Nepo mainly because I cannot say his last name or pronounce it correctly. But anyway, e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6. Nepo plays d4. Now that's an older variation, which was popular literally over 100 years ago. That they used to always play this back then that way. But today this opening hasn't been seen that much. But black plays knight takes e4. D takes e5. Now I think that's playable line, but a couple of my older opening books and even one DVD that I have on this opening says that this is not a good line for white. I think that's debatable. I don't want to give away any of my own secret home analysis here because I got into it very heavy for a long time. I really explored this line fairly deeply, but let's just say that I think it's fully playable, but you'd have to have explored it with a very good chess engine to play it in tournaments. But anyway, d takes e5, black plays d5, knight bd2, knight c5, knight b3, knight takes b3, a takes b3, bishop e7, bishop d3, c5. And here we've reached a fairly decent position. Both players are developing, controlling the center, doing all the things, the four basic principles of the opening, which are controlling the center, rapid development of your pieces toward the middle of the board, protecting the king and castling early, and also looking to maintain a material balance, and also with a big emphasis on square control. But anyways, black plays c5, And now white could play h3, and that, you know, keeps the black bishop at bay. The light squared bishop doesn't get to come to the important g4 square. But white plays c3 here, and now knight c6, and that's got to be an equal position. Both a lot of opening books, you know, rate this position as equal, and the engines also rate this position as equal. White rather plays a very interesting move here. Now, h3 or castles is got to be the correct way to go. Those are the top choices of the chess engines here. But Nepo plays rook a4, which is a very interesting move. Obviously, the rook is looking, you know, rook left coming along the fourth rank, coming over to the king side. Bishop e6. Also, another important about rook a4, actually, I want to talk about that move a little bit. It's not as silly as it looks. I mean, usually you don't bring out a heavy piece this earlier, but the main point of rook a4, one of the main points of this move, has many points, actually, but I think one of the main points in practical play is that the bishop, black's bishop doesn't get to go to the g4 square, at least not without preparation, because bishop g4 right now is just a blunder because of rook takes bishop. So rook a4 is not as naive as it looks, but it's an interesting move, but again, it's not the top move of the chess engines. Bishop e6, white castles, black plays h6, white just plays rook e1. This is just simple, safe moves. White could also play bishop c2 there. That's the top choice of the engines. Queen d7, bishop d2, rook d8, queen c2, a6, h3. That's, you know, I give that an exclam because it's looking at square control basically to keep some light square influence there on the king side. Queen c8. Here it's still a fairly level game. I think both sides are playing fairly good chess, but we're about to take a walk on the wild side, and that's one of the reasons that I chose this game, because it gets real interesting real fast. Rook f4, and now black plays b5. You know, it's still equal here, but I don't know, b5 might be a little too experimental. Simply castling for black was fine there. I don't know what Grigorians was afraid of or why he didn't play simple 16 castles for black. But anyway, this would be a good place to stop and sort of study the position. If you want to, I'll stop talking in just a second, and you can pause the video. And go ahead and do that now. Now, did you do like I asked and pause the video? I hope you did, because this is the way to really get better in chess. Take a couple of minutes and just study the position and try to figure out what your plan would be, and also maybe figure out some of the tactics, you know, some of the things you could try, some of the things that will work and some of the things that won't work, because if you do those basic things, that's what's going to make you a better player. But anyway, black played 16 b5, and now white plays h4. And to be honest, you know, if a 1600 had done that, I would have just labeled it dubious and gone on from there, because to me, you're just begging for black to play something like rook g8 and g5. You know, it just looks like black's asking, white's asking to get smacked in the mouth. And the evals tip slightly in black's favor, but it's a tremendously, Nepo is obviously either analyzed this with a chess engine in advance, maybe this is something he looked at home, or it's just something he cooked up over the board. Whatever the case, it's extremely deep position, very complex, and the analysis just goes off on tangents. I mean, I spent a long time exploring this position and never really came to a fundamental conclusion, you know, clear win for black, clear win for white, that kind of thing. So it's still a very interesting, and to solve all the problems in practical play, in other words, there's a big difference between sitting at home with a chess engine and just grinding away, and then sitting at the chessboard in a tournament with a limited amount of time and trying to solve all the problems over the board. So those are two distinctly different things. But anyway, h4 is a really wild move, and obviously, Nepo is going for, Nepomniachtchi, or however you say his name. That's as close as I'm going to come. But anyway, Nepo really is, I think he's looking to win. So that's why, h4 is, a real strong try there. Black plays g5. Rook f6. Now this is the move that, if you weren't prepared to play that move, if you weren't prepared to play the exchange sacrifice, then rook f4 would not have made any sense at all. So, and grabbing the rook right away looks tempting. I can get into analysis of that, but probably not the best. Black's move of g4 is probably the best move, because it kicks back the knight h2. And that's pretty much forced. And now you could play, h5 for black. I'm not even sure what the the engines say here. But anyway, black plays bishop takes f6. He goes ahead and decides to grab the bishop. I'm not going to get into the analysis of this game because I think my webpage will do a good job of that. I'm not quite finished with the webpage as I'm speaking today, but it should be wrapped up in just a day or two. But anyway, bishop takes f6. Black decides to go ahead and grab his exchange. The problem with that is the coordination on black's side of the board is very poor, and also too, he has a big problem with his dark squares from here on out. So anyway, bishop takes f6, e takes f6, king d7. Basically, if the black king just sits where it's at, white can just peck away at things. So king d7, that's kind of like a try to run away from where the attack is going to be, where the king side is going to be. So that's actually not a bad move. But anyway, bishop f5, and now h5. White's keying in on the g4 square, so black's just trying to prevent the loss of a pawn there. But the black king is kind of getting caught in a tough pin there, and things kind of start to deteriorate for black. I'm sure that sitting over the board, that the grandmaster that was playing the black pieces, Sergey Grigoriants, was had his head in his hands and was just absolutely going nuts trying to analyze all these different variations, because it's not an easy position to analyze. But anyway, now white plays bishop f4. Notice how this is a nice move because it cuts off this key diagonal here, this f4 to b8 diagonal. And that, in other words, basically the black king can't run away. Notice how the white king is coming straight up the white rook rather is coming straight up the e file, restricting the black king, and this knight can bing f1 g3 and get into the game very quickly. So black's kind of running out of options here. And also too, I think the thing to notice here is that all three of black's majors right now, at least, are just spectators on the back row. They're really not playing an active part in the game. So there's one thing to have a material advantage on the board, like being an exchange up, but right now white has all the piece play. That's just all I wanted to point out. And again, if you want to see some analysis, just check out the game, check out my webpage. Black plays RDE8. That might have been an error there. There was probably queen b7 or moving the rook on h8 to e8. That's just a natural move. Both of those moves occurred to me right away, and both of those check out with the engine to be fairly decent, and playable types of moves there. But anyway, just going back here, black plays RDE8, and that was probably a dubious move. White plays rook d1. That's a very good move because now this pin here becomes critical. Now the king is just pinned down. It's just amazing. And like I said, you probably should not just study my webpage either. You should probably get an engine and look at, what if the black king had stayed put on e8 or tried to capture the f6 pawn, and just explore some of those lines of the engine. You're going to see some amazing mates and some really amazing tactics in this game. So I think for any player, whether you're a master or even a middle range player or even a beginner, just exploring the tactics will help you better understand chess. Anyway, white plays rook d1 now, and now the position is clearly in white's favor. It's very easy to see that black's king is caught in the center in the crossfile. All these lines here, the bishop slicing through the position. It's really gotten ugly for black, and his king just doesn't have any place to hide. So it's and bishop takes bishop, queen takes bishop check, king d8. Rook takes pawn check on d5 is not an option for black, because he'd wind up either getting mated or have to stick his queen in the way or do something stupid and lose material. So that's not even an option there. So all of a sudden black's position has deteriorated greatly, and the move he should have played here, I believe, was knight a5, and that still might be a playable position here, but you kind of have to want to know what's going to happen there. But that the other nice thing about knight a5 is the black king can slide away from this attack, king c6, b7, and maybe even hide in the corner. So knight a5 was absolutely essential there. And but it's one of those moves that you might not see it, or might not even consider it, unless you're either a very good player or B, you're using a chess engine. So, but anyway, black plays d4, and that's just on a common sense level, that's got to be bad, because white can start swapping pieces and opening up the position, and that's not something black wants to do. C takes d4, and You know, now knight takes d4, and now just b4. And this is probably, maybe Grigorians was in time pressure and missed this. I don't know. I'm just speculating. I didn't really, you know, see the video of the game or anything. But maybe he just missed this possibility here. But what's really interesting is this rook's pinned here. And now white's threat is very simple. Just pawn takes pawn and rook takes knight, with an overwhelming position both materially and an ongoing attack that doesn't quit. So anyway, it's just a really nice move here, and you know, takes advantage of this pin down the d file. So you know, black's just getting pretty much tore up here. But anyway, queen c6, that just lost. I think king d8 was absolutely forced there, but I think everything was losing this point. But queen c6, b takes c5, queen d5, queen e4, queen takes queen, bishop takes queen, bishop to d5, rook takes, you know, d4. Now, what was interesting here was Nepo didn't play the absolutely best move. The absolute best move for white was bishop takes d5. And if you want to, again, see more analysis, just visit my webpage. But anyway, rook takes d4, which is good enough to win. Rook takes e4. Rook takes d5 check. King to c6, rook f5. rh8. Now here white plays g3. But absolutely, knight f1 was the best move. That was my first inclination there when I was looking at position, just because I want to bounce this knight around. You know, maybe you get to the e3 square or the g3 square and get it back into the game. And but anyway, Nepo plays g3, which is also a solid move. That gives the king an escape square on g2. You know, anchors this bishop on f4. Now the knight can, you know, he can play king g2 if there's a check on e1. And the knight can bounce, you know, f1, e3. So should be a one position here for white without much problem. But knight f1, the engine show, was the best move there. Rook b4, again, maybe not the best move. Here I think black had to play, if he wanted to stay in the game, he had to play rook h8 so he doesn't drop this h-pawn over here. But rook b4, rook takes h5. Rook takes b2. Maybe black was thinking, hey, I'm just going to run my, you know, it's not a bad plan. You're going to, you know, in time pressure, especially don't have a lot of time to think, you just run your two connected pass pawns down the side of the board, and it could get interesting. Knight takes g4, b4, knight e5 check, king b5, knight takes f7. And here black just simply resigned. You know, white's threatening knight to d6 there, forking the king and the rook, and there's a lot of other problems there. You know, also the you know, this f pawn here is check and just run this f-pawn in. That's, you know, a fast passer, and black really doesn't have any good way of combating that. So here he decided to go ahead and resign. You can analyze it with an engine if you want to see, you know, exactly what the end of the game would look like. But that pretty much concludes my video. I did want to keep my video under 20 minutes. Actually, I wanted to keep it around 15 minutes, and I'm running slightly long here, but that's okay. I covered the game, I think, in enough detail to where it kind of gets your feet wet. And again, if you want more analysis, you can fire up your chess engine. You can visit my webpage. The Chess Base, I believe, had a story on this game. There's a couple of links online where you can follow that and just find this game with Google and analyze it deeper. But that concludes my video. Thank you for watching my video. If you like my videos and like my web pages and feel you'd like to support that, please go to the PayPal website. That's www.paypal.com. and make a contribution, you know, to my websites, and that would be under my email, which is LifeMasterAJ@yahoo.com. Again, that's LifeMasterAJ@yahoo.com. Thank you for watching my video, and have a great day.